Welcome, everyone, to the podcast, The Man Within, Masculine Stories, Women Listening. We are your host, Aurelia,
Tatiana.
and today we are joined by an inspired guest whose mission is to guide others back to their most authentic selves. Roberto Sanchez Durazo is a transformational life coach trained in Don Miguel Ruiz's Toltec philosophy. And as a friend, I also know that he draws upon his own transformative journey to help others achieve clarity, well-being, and alignment. So, welcome to the show, Rob. Just as a side note, I will mention that we recorded this episode last night in Spanish. So, that's an exciting little gem to check out. Porque le echamos ganas.
Absolutely.
So, we want to begin by asking the question we ask of all our guests. Can you describe a breakthrough moment or a chapter in your life that changed how you approach your life as a man, whether it be emotionally, relationally, or spiritually?
Yes. As I spoke yesterday, everything started where I was in a 6-year relationship with a woman, and there was many times where the call came to start doing any sort of work or bring any sort of consciousness, any sort of awareness to anything that I was doing as just a person. And this relationship took me into a very deep transformation due to the fact that the person that I was with was suicidal. And I thought that the problem was me. I thought that my love wasn't enough. I thought that I wasn't enough. I thought that anything that I did wouldn't, it was just not helping or maybe even making it worse. And I seeked help in the best way I knew how to, which was keeping it to myself and taking action based on my whatever it is that I had, whatever resources I could. And that led me to Tony Robbins. And everything that I learned from Tony Robbins, I applied to her. And I never applied it to myself until after the relationship, due to the fact that, of course, she was also doing therapy and on suicide watch, not only by myself, but other people. But I ended up applying all that I knew, all that I learned from him, how to view life in a different way, gain different perspective through the challenges that we're going through, and just think in a better way to help. And I remember the reason that I started looking at him is because one day I came home, and at the time everybody was living together because everybody was transitioning from one place to another. My brother-in-law and my sister, they were with us, and my brother-in-law was a huge fan of Tony Robbins. And there was a documentary on Netflix, I think it's still there, where there's the first scene happens is this guy suicidal, and I myself have been suicidal. So I understood that, at a young age, since I was 6. I just didn't want to be here many times. So in that, I remember seeing the guy and how he helped them in 5 minutes. It's like he was speaking to me. I was the guy in the video, and I left. I was, if anything, I was saying in my mind, like, what the hell are they watching? Like, what is this weird crap, right? And I just watched. Something told me to watch, and I remember what he did for him, and like he changed his life in 5 minutes like that. I remember leaving and crying, and after that, I was like, I got to start diving deep into this guy, not only to help myself, which was also what I wanted to do, but I couldn't at the time, and then that person was okay eventually, and she wanted everything to go back to normal. And I had left all emotional responsibility of myself and gave it all to her because she was what needed to happen. So I lost myself so deeply in just a rabbit hole of like pain, and not only hers and everything that happened with our relationship, but just mine and all the things that I grew up with, and all of that started to come up to surface, and the relationship ended. And from then on, I just started transforming my life little by little. Of course, there was a lot of, in that relation, a lot of drinking, drugs involved with myself, as that's how I grew up. The neighborhoods that I grew up in, it wasn't the greatest neighborhoods, didn't have the greatest parents. So all of these things just started to come to surface, emotions that I needed to feel, let go of, how to even do it. It just started, and that's what started my path. And ever since then, I started transforming myself and recreating myself and looking life at it in a different way and just approaching it different, strengthening my masculinity, accepting my femininity, feminine energy within me and the masculine energy that's within me, and just using it to be a more well-balanced human being.
I'm kind of curious because everybody's experience is different, but I'm
Mhm.
wondering in this process, when was that moment of clarity when you felt as though this relationship wasn't one you wanted to continue in? Was it a sudden insight, a light bulb moment, or was it just a slow burn, slow evolution and transition out of that relationship? Because I think, sometimes people have an expectation of how transformation happens. And so I just kind of wanted to get your experience.
Um, I want to say the constant running away. I don't run from my problems even then. I never did. Like I faced everything as best as I could with the consciousness and awareness and intelligence that I had, and she never did. I hated that, for the lack of better words. I didn't like that. And when things got too hard, it was always like, oh, I gotta walk away or I gotta leave or I gotta go. That eventually, not only just that, but I got cheated on in the same relationship 3 times, and I let things go, which was my nature to do that. To be very, I'm a very forgiving person, very understanding person, but obviously that can bite you in the butt if you are not learning what you're supposed to learn in the process of it. I remember the last time that we had sexual intercourse, what was happened, which had happened 2 times before, that was the way of getting me back. And then I understood that. And then that's when I was like, oh, wait, I see this, I see that, and I see that. And I'm not doing this anymore. And that right there was kind of like the I'm done moment. It was so bad for her that she left from San Diego to Texas, which I was like, wow, that's it's a lot of running away. It's a 2 hour drive, which her sister lived there at the moment. So, and that, yeah, that I want to say that was the breaking point for me and the bringing to awareness. Of course, like I mourned that. It was hard. It was a 6 year relationship. I learned so much from that. Like I've told Aurelia before, my greatest teachers have been women. The reason I'm more of a stronger man is because of that. Because a
Mm.
woman that has been in my life has taught me more than any man has ever. So looking back at it, of course, at that moment in time, I didn't see it that way. But now I was like, I wouldn't be who I am, not only because of my family, my parents, but those relationships that I have had that made me really, really look at my patterns, not only just in dating, but what was going on inside those relationships.
I hear you. You said that women have been your greatest teachers.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, like what comes to mind when I say, what are some of the main things you've really learned about yourself through women?
Yeah. So to make it so simple in a way, my father was a Leo. I mean, my mother was a Leo. My father was a Taurus. The only women I've ever dated are those 2 signs. So I was dating my mother and my father, and both intertwined. They had patterns, whether the woman was a Leo, she had patterns that my dad had and my mother had. And same thing with the other one, Taurus, mom and dad, right? So there was things there that how I learned to love through them, how how I'm weak in certain areas, how I don't put my foot down, how I let my boundaries get crossed, how I betray myself, how I reject myself, how I let things go, how I am not assertive in certain areas, how I don't take action in certain areas, how parts of the little boy still live or lived, and how there was times where I wanted to be mothered, or there was times where I just needed that mothering, nurturing energy from a woman. Of course, we all still need that, not only just women, but men as well, period. But not in the way that I was asking for it, in the way that I just wanted to be kind of like babied or ignore everything in life and not take action on the things that I needed to, the challenges or stuff like that. How to become emotionally intelligent, how to hold space for a woman, how to accept and love a human being for all that they are, everything that they come with no judgment, with no rejection of anything. Of course, that doesn't mean betray yourself or any of that, but I did learn that a lot through my relationships, how to really love somebody, not just not conditionally, unconditionally. Again, that doesn't mean, betraying yourself, letting your boundaries get stepped on, or honestly, how to be just a stronger, more masculine man, standing in my power as a man. Yeah, how to be more nurturing as well.
Mm.
I've always had that nature within me, but just holding a woman in a certain way, in a nurturing way, making her feel safe, making her feel loved, learning what that even is to that specific person. Yeah, that and I can sit here and list even more things. So yeah, those are those are some of the things I have learned through women and in my relationships.
Yeah, I get it. I learned so much through men as well, and relationships are just the juiciest portals, really, to
Hmm.
be ourselves. And I think it usually just takes a certain framing, right? Because it's easy to go, wow, I dated someone who wasn't good for me and they did all these things that sucked, and I'm going to go find someone else, period, the end. And I'm not hearing that from you. I'm hearing you,
Ah, no, on the contrary.
yeah, seeing yourself.
Yeah, I respect and honor every woman that I have ever been with because without them, I wouldn't be where I am right now. It doesn't matter if they hurt me. It doesn't matter if they cheated on me. Every partner that anybody ever has, period, is the perfect partner for you because they are going to activate your masculine wounds and your feminine wounds. And they are just there to help you heal that. How could I be mad at that? How could I ever say that this person was a B or this person was that or this? Can I cuss? All right, I'm not gonna say that word, but just period. It's that how could I? That person was my teacher, I was their teacher. That relationship that I had with the Leo, I changed her entire structure of life because of the way that I saw life. She strengthened every structure of part of my life, the way I saw her life. It just so happens that she went into a relationship right after where she got to see how I was in the relationship with her, and the person that she was her in our relationship. And she got that, if you want to call it karma, you can call it that, but no, to me, I call it just, oh, here now I'm experiencing myself to this person, how I am, and this was how Robert was. And that changed her entire structure of relationship, of life. And we still talk. I'm still friends with the person. I got so much love for her because she changed my life. Without her, I couldn't be, like I said, that it was 7 months of, I want to say, constant learning, or constant pattern breaking, both of us, not just myself, like her. She was in the same kind of consciousness. She didn't understand the same things that I understood. I had, if you want to call it, a little bit more higher consciousness than she did, but I never saw her that way. I saw her for who she was and where she was.
That's beautiful. I honor that you are willing to offer not only yourself, but her the grace to say, I get why you were in my life and I'm grateful. That takes a lot of emotional maturity to get to that place. So,
It's not easy at first, of course, because you go through the emotions, but with that relationship, it didn't take me long. It was like, I get it. I see why she's in my life. Thank you. And it was that, and that's it. And there's nothing to be mad at.
Sorry, I'm curious what you might say to someone who's like, dude, like that sounds really nice, but like these girls out here are just breaking my heart and stomping on them and they're this and they're that. Like, what do you say to those guys?
I would probably tell them, find yourself. Learn who you are because obviously you're not seeing it through them. So maybe stay single so that you can understand who you are. Or stay single and look at every single one of those relationships to see how all the women that you came were just the same women with a different face and a different body, just coming here to show you what you have not mastered yet, not learned yet, because that'll happen. Your soul yearns to understand and find itself more than anything. It wants to unleash the most beautiful and highest expression of itself in the moment in time, every single time, here and now. So if it's not learning what it needs to learn or master about itself or the body, then it'll keep bringing it just in another experience in another way until we master it. You can call this lessons, you can call this school, or whatever it is that anybody wants to call it. I just see it as a recreation of the self. You recreate yourself every single day. You have the ability to play a new version of yourself every single day. And how you play it, how you're aware of it, then that's what determines how you're creating your life. If you're not becoming aware of who you are, you're just going to keep creating the same thing over and over again until you finally say, enough is enough.
so I wanted to ask you, since you mentioned how your parents' sign were the Leo and the Taurus. Is that
Yeah,
right? You said how much of what was happening in your relationships was reflective of what you saw in your relationship, your parents' relationships?
so much. So much. My partners were like my father in the sense where I had to win their love or I had to earn it. If not, I would get it taken away. And my mother was a reflection of how emotionally unintelligent they were with their own emotions and how it always got projected onto me. And it was always me, 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 me. My mother was like that. Not to shame her or anything. My mother had a really hard life and she had so much trauma that talking about anything that happened in her childhood instantly like that made her cry. She couldn't even speak about it. And I went to this event at Awaken where I actually finally got to see what happened to her, where she got her innocence stripped at the age of 6 years old, where everything started for me. Everything started at me for the age of six, and I understood that then and there and why everything started with me there. Because the in my lineage, the feminine energy is very, very wounded. There's so much sexual abuse, rape, mistreatment, and I'm sure that's with everybody, in a lot of people's families, as men have done these things where they lost their own femininity, their own feminine energy. So to gain the power that they think is the real power, it's not. They damage so much of the feminine energy within not only themselves, but within the opposite species. I got to see all of that and how she was raped and how she was taken, her innocence, and it was 14, 15 generations of women in her family that got taken that where I got to heal that through them and for them and with them in that event. And not only there, but it started with my ayahuasca ceremony before that. Because as I was telling you yesterday, I thought my father's wound was deeper than my mother's, but my mother's is the one that was deepest. Yeah, those things showed up in every single partner. All of these patterns that they were just there to show me how I was running creating and what I learned through them and how I can break it if I was brave enough, if I had enough courage to face this, if I had enough love to be able to embrace these women with love and not shame them. Of course, to the human, it can be hard at times to even understand that concept, period. But the more work that I did, the more I understood all of these things and how love heals everything, like everything.
Mm.
It can stop wars, it can stop any sort of pain, it can heal anything, in my opinion. It's the strongest healing energy in the world.
Rob, are you the only one in your family doing this kind of work that you're talking
Uh,
about?
no, my sister, she has taken a different route in it than I did. She has certain beliefs, but I respect them. But she is doing certain work in the same way. And yeah, also doing that. Other than that, I'm not really too sure because anytime I talk about any of this stuff with my other family, I'm like, looked at crazy. So, but I'm okay with it. I'm gonna be me. I'm gonna be authentically me. I'm not gonna let other people stop, me talking about the things that I love to talk about. Especially if like, I'm gonna plant a seed and it's gonna help them be like, oh, that's what Rob was talking about that one day. Now I can, heal this or whatnot. Or if somebody asks me a question in my family, I always answer it with the knowledge that I know, the wisdom that I've been given, and the inner wisdom that I have within myself. Not a lot in my family are doing it, I would say.
Yeah. And, I think it can be kind of challenging for folks when they start to go down this path of opening
Mhm.
doors that have never been opened and letting go of old patterns that are in the family. And it can feel really isolating because the family is staying where they are, and it's cool, like your sister's up to something cool that sounds like you can resonate with. But yeah, what do you say to someone who's like, I don't really want to be an alien to my family, or
Oh, yeah.
what do I do and still feel
Uh,
connected to them?
Well, the one thing I always tell people, it doesn't have to look how the way I do it. Your soul knows exactly what it's doing. It might not look like how maybe us three have done it, but they are healing. That's why I meet them where they're at. Because they do talk about personal development or they do talk about this, but they just don't do it like how I'm doing it. And I thought, before it had to look the way that I do it, but they're doing it in the way that they know best until they get to a certain level. Of course, maybe it will start looking like something that I'm doing or something that Tatiana's doing, or Aurelia's doing. I would say if anything, start somewhere. Personal development books is something so simple that you can start. I wouldn't say meditating because most people that are starting, they think they're doing meditation wrong, which they're actually doing it right when they think they're doing it wrong. But yeah, I would say it doesn't matter where you start. Just start. Read a book, something that's going to help you, something that's going to give you some sort of activation in your brain that maybe I've never thought like this before. Wow, this book, this concept, it really blew my mind. I want to now look more into it. I want to now start going into this rabbit hole of thoughts, maybe consciousness, maybe spirituality, maybe psychology. I've gone into many rabbit holes. It's the reason why I do what I do now. But Carl Jung was a huge inspiration for me because I love psychology. I love to understand why we do what we do and why we're doing it because that helps people. That's healing for people because some people don't know why they're doing what they're doing. I didn't know why I was doing what I was doing, so that's why I went into that. I was like, well, I want to find out what I'm doing, and I don't think I need to go to school for 10 years to find out something that somebody did for 30, 50 years and put it in a book. In my opinion, I don't need a degree to tell me what I do know and what I don't know and how I can help somebody and how I can't help somebody. I think that is a great grand gesture of the game that we're all playing. Yes, it gives you a certification, of course, but It doesn't always insinuate that you know how to do that very well or understand it very well.
Yeah, reading doesn't equal embodiment of something.
Exactly. Integration of something. If you just read something and grab information, then something I always say is, information without integration is just the ego hijacking it and bringing you another way of, I can screw him this way, I can screw you this way, and I can also screw you this way. And it shames you and guilts you into saying, well, you know these things. Why aren't you doing them? And then you go even more to the bottom because now you know another route, but you never integrated what you read in that book.
How old were you when you went through this experience with this ex?
I was 28, going into my 30s. If we want to bring it to the astrological thing, there's something called Saturn return. And that's exactly what that was. That was me getting stripped of my entire ego and it telling me, you've been living like this. Let me show you how you've been living. And then now I'm at the age of 33 where I put myself on the cross. That number is very significant. We have 33 vertebrae. The Kundalini energy goes up to the 33rd vertebrae and explodes right here. That's called the gates of heaven. That's when you get put on the cross. That's what the whole symbolism is called when it comes to that. So the rebirth of the new, of course, another Saturn returns happens when you're 60, as it happens every 30 years. But that was the beginning of all of that. It started happening a little bit before, but at 28 is when I remember, like, what in the world is going on in my life right now that I cannot get my crap together? Because everything, I mean, everything was chaos. It was just hard going through all of that. And I was like, what am I, trying to control everything, trying to figure out. And it's like life is just bending me left and right. And I was like, all right, well, I'm not one to give up a fight. So a belief that I have, it's either you or it's me. And it damn sure ain't gonna be you.
I asked the question because I was thinking about, tying this a little bit into the Latino culture, right? Because, three Latinos right here, tic-tac-toe. And
Mm.
I was thinking about an experience the other day when a friend called me and a Latino told me how he was having a really bad day. And I said, "Oh, well, how are you choosing to handle it?" And he said, "Oh, in the Latino way. We find something to laugh about and then pretend like everything's fine." It is a bit reflective of the culture, and it's not specific to Latinos necessarily, but growing up, definitely the idea was that when the weekend came, it was the time to unwind. And the way that you unwound was you party, right? You use the alcohol, the music. It was about losing yourself in an experience so that you didn't have to think about what happened during the week or during the grind that was the work week. And so I just found it interesting that he called it the Latino way. That was his default. He's like, this is how we operate. So I was curious how your perspective on that as a Latino and how it distinguishes or how it influences your experience.
I mean, that influenced my experience a lot. That's the reason I drank so much. That's the reason I did drugs because I didn't want to feel crap. I didn't want to face myself. I think that's the scariest thing that you can do in this life is face yourself. In my opinion, of course, I think that was the hardest thing for me to like really go deep into myself and be like, I'm doing this. I don't know how to change it. So I'm just gonna drink this. I'm gonna go masturbate. I'm gonna go eat something. I'm gonna go smoke this blunt. I'm gonna go put this through my nose. Whatever it may be. Like that was the way that we grew up. That's what the neighborhood was. That's how the worries went away. That's what fixed everything. Which actually obviously does more damage to your body than anything. And it makes you escape from your body. It takes the power, the unlimited power that you have within yourself to tap into and unlock that to be able to go through these things and feel them. It shuts you so much off from your body, the Latino way.
Mm.
So it It did that for me. God, I was so lost. I cannot tell you how lost I was in all of this crap. Even making false stories, truthfully, like the telling myself that I was, selling drugs when I wasn't selling drugs just to be cool, because that's what it was in the neighborhood. If you were selling weed, you were selling something, you were cool. You were the guy, you were the top dog, you were the whatever, you know? You were the OG, whatever you want to call it. Just making a full mask of identities that I am not correlated to what I should be because of the environment and the neighborhood that I was from or grew up in. That's the Latino way to an extent. That's how I grew up. And of course, all of those things I just mentioned, doing all of those things were part of that culture and environment and how we escaped escapism. And it was the worst thing. That's the worst thing you can ever do in your life, I believe, especially because I went through it. I understand it so deeply, and I get why people do it. Nobody tells you or shows you or gives you even an example of how to feel your feelings. And as a man in the Latino culture, you're not supposed to feel. If you feel, you're a little bitch. If you speak out your emotions, you're weak. If you cry, again, you're a little bitch, you're gay, you're a faggot, whatever name anybody wants to call a person that does that as a man is not a man, period. And so, of course, you shut even more down. And then these things help us. These things are our medicine to an extent. And they take the worries away. And more than anything, they take part of your soul away. I mean, alcohol, the meaning of alcohol is spirit eating body. So that's something deep in its sense right there. That's why they call them spirits. That's why the liquor stores it says spirits and liquor. I mean, yeah. And every single type of bottle is a certain type of spirit for a certain type of body that needs it. That's why people get addicted to whiskey because it brings a certain thing, bourbon, whatever it may be. I hope that answered that question.
Yeah, no, it's a good perspective. And definitely, I think it's something that, no one ever, at least for me, I think we just don't talk about that enough. Like, no one ever questions it. We just show up and, partake in it. And no one ever says, why are we doing this every weekend? Nobody questions it. It's the way.
No, yeah, and it's before, when I was more transitioning into being more okay with anything and everything, when I was in the midst of all of it and I was trying to, or not trying, stopping drinking, I would go to parties like that and I would see everybody and I'm just like, God, everybody's so fucking lost. And I would remember myself and how lost I was. And all I can do was pray for them. All I can do was give them love in the state that they were in, no matter what. Now it's completely different. Like I don't even look at it that way. I just see it as they're at a certain part in their life and their journey, and they're exactly where they need to be. Nobody is not exactly where they need to be. So now I just approach it as that, and I don't separate myself from them because obviously I have been there. How could I? How could I say, well, you're heading in the wrong route? I can give words of encouragement if they allow it. I can plant a seed if they allow it. But other than that, of course, it's their life, it's their creation, and that's the way that they want to live. I'm going to do everything always in my power to bring forth my energy. Of course, my energy in itself causes people to open up to something. So, of course, I'll always speak into that. But other than that, that's all I can do.
That's really kind to hear because I think it's really easy to go through a healing journey, get to a certain place in your life, and you can look back and start to really judge your family, your friends, where you've
Hmm.
come from. It's just super easy because you're sober, your eyes are wide open, and you can see people hurting themselves, you can see people hiding from themselves, and getting to a place of acceptance and connection and building that love even though you're in a different place, is
Yeah.
really powerful. And yeah, I wonder if you have any advice for someone who might be in that transition point or is like, hey, I can't stand how toxic my family is, or my
Yeah, absolutely. I do. I was that person. I used to judge the crap out of my family. And I used to be like, they don't know. And I used to get shamed for being healthy, for not drinking, for like, so that's why I would do it to get back at them. One of the biggest challenges in my life that I have dealt with was the judgment of my family because I was so getting brought up into this world. I was the outcast. I was told, I wish you died. You should have never been born. You were an accident. My mother was a stripper, and that's how my father and mother met. So I was the problem that broke up the family that was there before that I'm still half brothers with everybody, right? So all of these things, like, the judgments that I had because I came into life and I was like, hey man, I didn't ask for this, okay? Two people had sex and then I came about. Those judgments were harsh and beginning to understand then after that, they still do it every now and then, oh, you're so healthy, you don't drink, like you're just like perfect. And I'm like, well, I play around with it. I'm like, yeah, well, I'm a Virgo, we're perfectionists, so get on my level, like sometimes I sarcastically like play with them, but not to hurt them or anything, just to play because I'm playful like that. But I don't pay attention to it. I have such a good understanding of why and where it's coming from, of course, somebody being shown to you as an example of the possibility of what you can be, but you can't reach that because you stop yourself, it irks somebody. That brings light into their darkness. So understanding that as a person that is doing the work and going to family events, that's something doing like that, it's okay because your light is shining into their darkness, people will try to condemn you. Don't let it. Don't allow it. Don't give other people the power to bring you back down to their energy. Ever. Anybody. That's not just with family, like that's with period anything in your life. If you give somebody the power to control your life, you now gave them the power to control how you feel, how you think, what you do, how you do it, and how you show up. I don't give people that power anymore. Thanks to my family, who taught me these things, you know? So yeah, that's what I would say, just understand that your healing energy is bringing forth light to their darkness, and they can't stand their darkness because they haven't faced it yet. So because they haven't faced it, they will project all of that darkness onto you. And if you let it, you will come back down to their level. If you block it or just see it for what it is and understand that this is what's happening, then you will know, like, I'm gonna be in my light. You're not gonna bring me down. I love you that much that I won't allow that.
Mm. That's powerful what you just said.
Thank you.
Love you enough to not feed into the
Hmm.
separation or the negativity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love you enough to not separate myself from you, knowing that I've been where you're at. I get it. I've done what you're doing to that person that brought the light onto me. I've done that. I get it. Of course, sometimes my ego wants to play, but I know when it's coming from a playful place and when it's coming from a dark place. I discern there. But like I said, sometimes I'll say something playful like, well, yeah, of course I'm a Virgo, we're perfectionists, so get on my level, just playing around something like that. But yeah.
Leaning into this idea of wellness, because obviously you've done a tremendous amount of work on many levels, but I know that you also had some struggles with your physical health, with being overweight and seeing yourself or not being willing to see yourself. And so, hiding behind, just all that excess weight on your body. And you've talked about that being another challenge that you had to overcome as you were working to heal yourself?
Yeah, that was the first thing that I did actually. That's what, after that relationship, that's what like I attacked right away. And because I was trying to do it, I had lost weight, not a lot, but then I gained it all back because of the breakup, because I went back to my usual habits, eating, drinking, drugs. So all of that came back. Yeah, almost 300 pounds. And I got so honest with myself. And I looked in the mirror and I said, "You're ugly, you're fat, you have boobs, you're not getting any girls, and you're not going to looking like this. You're weak." And I was just brutally honest with myself in the mirror. And I changed that. I didn't look back and I approached it different. I was in a part in my life at that moment in time where I had lost my job for the first time. Never been unemployed in my life. It was in the peak of COVID, where everybody was either losing their jobs, doing whatever was happening during that time for that specific human being. Everybody was going through some transition. And I had lost my job for the first time, never been unemployed in my life. And it was the hardest thing ever because it was a surrender that I had to just be okay with. I look back and I don't know how I did it to survive and bringing in money, but I did it and I figured it out, right? But I knew this. I told myself, I looked myself in the mirror and I said, I don't care if I lose this apartment. I don't care if I lose my car. I don't care if I lose everything. One thing I know I'm going to lose is weight. And I never saw the weight that I had ever again because I decided and I said, this is going to happen. I maxed out my credit cards, getting a personal trainer. I started fixing my diet, looking at ways how to fix my diet on my own. Of course, I also got insight from my trainer. I didn't have enough to pay him so he can provide me a meal plan. So I just like, every now and then I would sneak it in there like, hey, what should I eat? This and that. Um, but other than that, like I just said, I'm not looking back. I ran 2 hours every freaking day. Every day I went on a hike, and it was the most healing, nurturing thing I could have done for myself because the confidence that it brought in was unmatched. I actually always tell people start with your body, especially if you're not at a place where you're confident enough in yourself. If you're a man, start with your body. It's going to bring you an confidence inside of yourself that you can't get anywhere. Because when you look at yourself in the mirror, you'll be happy with how your body, at least appearance, looks. Yes, there's other things to work on, of course. I used to go back to my high weight because I didn't work. I just worked on my body, but I didn't work on the mind and the spirit. And you cannot work on something without working on all three. You have to attack all three, which is something that I found in that process is if you do work on your body, you can go back to the same weight that you used to be because you didn't change the perspectives, you didn't change the way you're approaching how you're going in with your health, how you're going in with your body, how you're taking care of it. Are you listening to it? Are you it's speaking to you all the time? That was a journey that changed a lot in my life. That was radical and brought me to more work because as I shed all of those emotions, which is what I call all the fat, all things started to rise up. So much more started to rise up. I had the capacity to take more because my energy went up, my vitality went up, my consciousness went up, my awareness went up. So the more, of course, you're aware of yourself, the more you're able to take in. And it's like that verse in the Bible that says God will never give you more than you can handle. And that's the truest thing. Anybody that's going through something right now, what you're going through, you can handle it because you will never get more than you can handle, not through your body, through your mind or spirit.
When you are talking about showing up so much for your body,
Hmm.
working out, walking, hiking, I hear a lot of commitment from
Mm,
you. You were like, all right, I mean it. What might you say to someone who's been struggling with commitment in their life?
mm,
What really got you to a place where you were locked on to that degree?
mm. Being really brutally honest with myself at that time. So at that time also, I was listening to people like Tony Robbins, David Goggins, Les Brown, Zig Ziglar, Jim Rohn. All of these people were actually my voice because I had no concept of values or beliefs. Because at that moment in time, I also found that I had been living my life through everybody else's belief system other than myself. So David Goggins was a big person that really got me into like, stop being a little boy, stop crying, stop complaining, stop bitching, and get your ass up, go to the gym, put in the work so that you can transform yourself. And that's why I looked at myself in the mirror like that. He has a thing in his book called Can't Hurt Me that he was talking about that. And that's why I did that. I was super honest with myself. He has the same story as me. So that's why he resonated so much. He was like, I don't know, almost 300 pounds, and he wanted to get into the Navy, Navy SEALs, and the deadline was coming up, and he lost like freaking hundreds of pounds because he got so aggressively honest with himself. And I was like, well, I'm gonna do that too. I gotta do that. I've been trying to lose weight. And yeah, it was just being honest with yourself and accepting the reality then and there. That's the biggest thing is accepting the circumstances that you're in right now without judgment, without looking at it in a negative, because even the negative is positively serving you. As we were talking about this yesterday, even the positive is negatively serving you. Everything has a delicate balance in this life. Everything has a masculine and a feminine property or a negative and a positive within it. Something positive can't be without something negative. Something negative can't be without something positive. Not judging it and being neutralizing maybe the belief that you have about it, maybe the concept, the perception, the perspective, the value that you have about it, and accepting it for what it is in that moment, right then and now. And just taking action. One of the biggest things, because I am a Virgo, is I have overthinked things. How am I going to do this? How is this going to happen? Why? How do I need to do it? What plan do I need to have? What shoes do I need to buy? What clothes do I need to have? You don't need none of that. Just go walk, go on a walk, go on a run. Start that way. Do something that's going to be a baby step that leads you to the next, that leads you to the next, that expands, and you'll keep expanding that way. Most people disregard what they can do in a year, or in 3 months, or in 6 months, or in 9 months. Some people don't take a look at the fact that that journey, yeah, maybe, right, it's like the overnight successes. They were an overnight success, but it took them 15 years to get to overnight success. It took myself 2 years to get to the body weight or the muscle that I have now. It wasn't something that came like that. Absolutely not. And I'm still building because I want a certain complex, but it's just taking the step, taking action, not even something. There's a saying that says you should think before you act. In certain things, you should act before you think, like this one. If you have a pattern running that always stops you, act before you think instead of think before you act in anything. And that's not just men, that's women, period, all of humanity. There's things that take us for a while because we have a story that we tell ourselves. And in those stories, we are literally creating that reality because of that story, because our mind doesn't know what's real from fake. So, because of that, we stay where we're at. And instead of thinking about that, you could just act on it and just be like, take me to the unknown. Jesus, take the wheel, as they say.
I'm curious, just taking that concept a step further. How does a conscious man apply that same level of commitment to relationships?
I would say a man knows when he's in love, period. If he's doing everything and he'll move the heaven and earth for a woman. If there is a relationship where somebody's not doing something, it's because he's not in love. He's not there yet, maybe. Maybe there's a part of him that hasn't matured enough. But usually, a man that is conscious enough knows exactly what he wants, how he wants it, why he wants it. So, any person that is not acting according to those standards, probably not at that area. And it's most likely going to be a karmic relationship.
So when you do know and you're there, how does that commitment manifest? I want the juicy details.
What do you mean?
How are you going to show up? How are you going to demonstrate your commitment to that person once you know, yes, this is someone that I definitely want to invest in, or potentially, this is my person. Like, how do you approach that situation differently than, well, certainly from where you are at this point?
Well, it depends on the relationship, of course, but there's certain concepts I feel as a man that should be there, which is providing, offering a safe space for that woman, lead, leading that person, not necessarily leading like I'm going to tell you what to do and that's what you're going to do. No, just leading in a way where I don't know how to say this without it sounding bad, but like having enough intelligence and knowledge that you can lead that relationship in where both of you are trying to go. Putting yourself in front and making sure the woman's in the back, but not like in the back as, oh, this person's just that. More than anything, offering the safety so the protection can be there for that woman. Because in my opinion, the brains is more of the woman. As I've told you before, I think women hold the key to Earth's survival. The feminine energy is way more powerful than, more powerful than the masculine. Obviously, men have the physical strength, but women can hold the memory to earth. They can tap into the spiritual more than men can. A man that's well balanced in his energies can also, of course, but leading them in that way, having a partner where you guys are flowing constantly in the masculine and energy, balancing each other out, balancing the spiritual world and the physical world, and leading that so that the woman can be protected, safe, so that she can flourish in her power, so that she can embody her wisdom and essence and intelligence that she can tap into Mother Gaia and get all of that intelligence from to offer the healing energy that all women have.
So how do you think a man can help a woman feel safe? Like what does that look like to you?
Mm, in many ways, emotionally, financially, with her goals, with her ambition, with her masculine energy more than anything, to allow that woman to assert their masculine energy, as all of us have that within us, right? Not taking it as, oh, she's emasculating me, she's dominating me, but giving her the room and the space to be masculine and feminine, to interchange her energies and allow her to flow in all of her essence and bask in it. And I would say to hold space emotionally when there is times, sometimes some people don't need to get fixed. They just need to be listened to. It's the biggest problem men and women have. I don't know if you guys ever seen this video of this guy and there's a girl with a nail in her forehead and he's like, there's a nail in your forehead. That's probably why you feel the way you're feeling. And she's like, you're not getting it. And she's like, you're not listening. And the guy's like, but if you just took the nail out, like you would probably feel better. And, it's the whole thing about just listening. You don't always have to fix, you don't always have to provide a solution. You don't always have to be the fixer. Just listen, know when to give the advice, if she asks for it, know when to hold and set your own boundaries as a man, right? Because the biggest way I can explain it is for myself how I do it, right? The masculine is like the mountain, the unmovable mountain that just stays there. And then the feminine is the ocean of, or the storm that comes in and just spreads her emotions out, and you just stand in the middle of it. That's not saying letting yourself be manipulated, controlled. Know that, of course, if that is happening. Don't accept that if that is happening, but being that person that can hold the space so that she can really express her emotions, how they're coming. I've seen that in my relationships. I've been that mountain, and I can't tell you what happens to a woman when that is offered. They literally just, every single time, just come to my chest and just cry and let it all out. And I can't help but to cry myself because I just offered that. And they, maybe it was about the toilet, but it wasn't about the toilet. It was about something deeper than the freaking toilet, that I was just there standing and I was like, fuck, I don't know what this is about, but I'm here for you and I love you and I'm not running and I'm not leaving and I don't know what's happening, but I'm here. And hearing those words makes that person fall apart and knows that they are safe.
Yeah, we definitely need that as women. You're right. It's true. And I think we all need it. You know, you're talking about we all hold these masculine and feminine energies, and being able to take turns, allowing each other to touch feeling, take turns holding each other. Something in like family constellations philosophy that Aurelia and I both facilitate is there is a necessary balance between giving and receiving. And if
Mm,
there's out of balance, things just start to get kind of funky. Things
yeah.
start to hurt. And it's beautiful to hear you talk about your experience because sometimes the words masculine, feminine don't even matter so much. Like they get kind of blurry in the sense of, you standing there and holding her, but you're still in your heart, right? You're there. You're touching your own feeling. You're crying. And it's
Mm,
just ultimately this dance of I'm going to receive you. I'm going to give something to you at the same time. And I can't even really wrap my head around it all the way, but it's just this really beautiful dance that when I get to experience it in my life, it's got such a frequency of harmony,
mhm.
of peace, and here for that.
It's a restoring balance, and I feel like this concept needs to be understood a little more individually, and also how the roles play in I wouldn't say separate, but as two individuals that are coming together and learning how to play those and balancing that out within one another. Because for the example that I gave, right, my masculine was a mountain just standing there saying, and my feminine was saying those words. I'm not leaving. I'm not going anywhere. You can keep trying to push me out. I'm not going anywhere. So whatever needs to happen right here, let it happen. And then boom, that opens up the heart, and then release happens. And I've seen that many times in my experiences when I've done something like this for a woman, not necessarily even in a relationship, just period, with people that I've talked with people that I've coached, when I've taken people through processes, when I've taken somebody through, specifically women, it just pours out like the waterwork starts happening. I was speaking about this earlier. Like, if you think about it, crying is such a spiritual thing that happens in your life. Like, your body is literally turning salt into water, and alchemization of something is happening in your body, where then it turns into water and it releases it. Like, that's deep shit. The body is letting go of stuff when you're crying, man or woman. So cry. Cry all you can because it's release, it's letting go.
Great message from the beginning, right?
Yeah.
Growing up in a culture where that wasn't at all okay,
Mhm.
to embracing fully the tears.
Yeah. And talking about that, like that's why so many men kill themselves. The suicide rate for men is so freaking high because that was the indoctrination. If we do any of this, we're not men enough. And if we try to do something about it, you're gay. And then you lose your man card. So it's like, geez, like we're screwed here, we're screwed here. Until you finally say, hey, I'm okay with being screwed both places, let's do this. You know? And it takes courage to do that. It's the greatest energy in the scale of the map of consciousness that you can have is the courage to do everything and anything that you want in life and be authentically yourself. And that's the highest authenticity, being you, expressing the highest version of you that you can express here now. So that's the only thing that exists.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much for clearly all the work that you've done and all the thought you've put into your relationships, yourself, the grace you've given yourself, family. I can see it, I can hear it in your voice, and it has such an impact.
Thank
Whether
you.
it's little droplets of seeds that you're planting and you don't know how they'll grow, or just the fact that you're living your truth and with people and sharing your heart.
I used to say or used to think that, when you do something like that, you're wasting your time. You're wasting saliva because they don't listen. And obviously for me, I ended up finding out that was like a wound that I had that I needed acceptance or validation from them.
Mhm.
Then I indoctrinated another perspective, which is it doesn't matter when they play it out. If they grabbed and the seed was planted, who knows, maybe 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 11, 12, 20 years from now, that seed will finally get watered. And then they can be like, oh, that's what Tatiana was talking about. That's what Robert was talking about.
Mhm.
That's what Aurelia was talking about. So it's never a waste. It's just simply whenever it is that their soul or their human, their ego finally says enough is enough. Let's do it.
And I think too, this I still keep coming back to, the Latino way of still kind of reflecting on that a little bit and
Mm.
thinking about how that perpetuates the disconnection. And so, like, again, us here having a pretty honest conversation about how challenging it is to grow up in the Latino way and how it kind of in some ways, yeah, we're forced to choose at some point. Like, is this something that we continue the cycle or do we choose different? And I think that this is to me, because I'm also thinking about, the idea about the machista, the machismo, and really being able to sit and have conversations and questions like, well, why are we doing this? How can we separate ourselves from this type of thinking? I think that these kinds of conversations are so necessary and healing and nourishing, which is partially why, Tatiana and I really wanted to do this podcast because we really feel like the dialogue is, like one of those seeds, like you were talking about. We need to begin tending to the garden and really watering with good quality water, versus, the same recycled muddy water that we've been using.
Yeah, I mean, like we were talking about yesterday, that concept is you asked the positives and the negatives of it. And of course, there's positivity in it, right? We spoke a little bit about that earlier when it comes to like being a strong man, providing the safety, providing for your family. But then a lot of the the negative and also the feminine aspect got taken out of that and got completely forgotten. And in that, it only became like, oh, however many women I have, however many women I sleep with, what I say goes. A complete little boy of a man acting out, an adult acting as a boy is what it became. Basically, what I say goes. I'm the leader of the household. And I mean, joke. I wouldn't say even joking around, but most of the times the woman's the leader of the household, whether the man thinks about it or not. But, I'm just saying the balance of that, bringing it back to like, there is a positive aspect of it. Of course, providing, being strong, defending your family at all stakes whenever it comes, but it just got forgotten. The feminine got forgotten in all aspects, and how we were talking about that yesterday when it comes to even in women. Some women are so masculine that they have forgotten about their feminine, how to feel, how to be emotionally intelligent with their own emotions. And, there's a battle of the sexes to an extent where men don't know their head from their ass and they have suppressed their femininity in a sense also with women, where so or some men are just so feminine and some women are so masculine. Yeah, that works, but then there's going to be a clash because the masculine emasculating the man and then the woman being called crazy because they have too much emotions and they don't know what to do with them and projecting that. So there's so many dynamics that have happened with the sexes. It's such a mess right now that I know that all of this is going to get brought back to balance. That's the point of all of this darkness. So many people are awakening. So many people, everything that's happening in the world right now, so many people don't understand that this is here serving us. Of course, it looks like crap. Of course, it looks scary. Of course, it looks horrible. But this is bringing out the darkness within ourselves so that we can bring light and awareness to the things that we need to heal. And when we start to realize that, more balance comes as an individual and then as a collective, where then you can take back your sovereignty, your power, and not rely on a government that's actually not actually governing us or governing because they're just doing what their plans are for their own selves and making us, spilling us fear so that we can indoctrinate their energy and their beliefs as they take our energy. So, yeah.
In constellations, we call it, everyone taking their rightful place.
Mm.
And it feels like everybody is just milling about and not in their rightful place.
Yeah, there's a lot of robots walking around. A lot of people asleep just walking like the Walking Dead. But like I said, all of that is there for us. And of course, this is just an opinion, you can choose to see it that way or you can choose not to see it that way. And that's all valid. That's all beautiful. And that's all respectful for where you are in your journey in your life because everybody, literally everybody, is in their own evolution process. Everybody is here doing what they came to do for their own evolution and for the collective evolution as we are all serving one another. There's a beautiful, beautiful scene in The Matrix where the Oracle offers Neo the candy and she talks about that where he's like, well, do you already know if I'm gonna take it or not? And he's like, well, I wouldn't be an Oracle if I wouldn't, right? And he tells her, like, well, what's the point if you already know? And she tells him, you're not here to understand what it is that you're doing. It's just you're here to understand why you chose to be here and do it. So, in a sense, she's telling everybody, you're here to remember that you're God. You're here to remember your soul and where you belong and what you actually are, that you're the creator of your life. You have the infinite power to create at will. And then, of course, she goes to explain all of the different, it's not really said, but of course, the esoteric meaning to it is all the different dimensions and how different programs are serving the whole. and what is actually happening when she talks about the angels and demons, the pigeons, they run their own program, how all of the collective consciousness is working. Of course, that's viewed in a like parable to an extent. If you understand those parts, you can understand that aspect of it. But yeah.
I'm sure we could talk about that for a long time.
Oh yeah, I can. That's one of the things I love talking about. The esoteric is just something I think the entire world should know. All of the hidden meanings, the symbols, words, meanings, they're right in front of us. All of the truth is just right there.
Well, symbolism really gets to be the universal language and the timeless language if we allow it.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's, and it's a frequency more than it is a constructed word. It's a whole package of energy, and I could talk about symbolism for a really long time. And I agree with you. I think for anyone looking for deeper meaning, more just a richer life, to get closer to yourself and to reality, go down some rabbit holes and see what you find. Because this life, it might seem like it's like just chopping wood and carrying water, and things are like the movies, they're just simple, but there's really so much going on. There's so much going on every day, every moment. And I think it's a lot more fun to live that way.
Yeah, very true. There's so much going on. Some people know it, some people don't see it, some people are ignorant to it. Some people don't want to know it because it might shatter their entire existence. You know, of course, everybody has that choice. It's that choice.
Perhaps we are going to wrap up. Do you agree, Aurelia?
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground in this conversation. Yeah, it's been really good.
Yeah, I'm all for it. You guys want to keep going? Let me know. I'm all.
I really appreciate your openness and willingness to just be yourself. Like you said, I'm totally with you on that. The greatest gift we can all give each other is the truth of ourselves. And I feel that from you. So thank you very much. And you want to share with our listeners how they can connect with you, what you're up to?
Yeah, sure. Currently, right now, I am working on a course, so that would be out sometime soon. Eventually, there's going to be another one, but right now, I'm on Instagram or TikTok. I'm more on Instagram than anything at Rob underscore solo, SOULO underscore coaching. So you can find me. All of my services are there. My podcast is there as well. There's nothing more in my life than I love than to help somebody guide them back to their heart, man or woman. I love helping men a lot because there's not a lot of men that do the work, and there's a lot of men that are lost. So if anybody is hearing that, you know, if you feel called, I'm here. And those are that's the thing that I love to do the most in my life is help people come back to their heart, help people understand who they are, not through my lens, not through my view, but through theirs. Because then you would just be living through my life. I'm just a mirror and I'm just a walking message here to help you return back to yourself. And I have the healing energy to offer for that to be possible if you allow yourself to take it so that you can build your own perception of life and everything that you desire to be. So yeah, those are the places you can find me, Instagram, TikTok, and my podcast is called the Become a Student of Life podcast. I'm a student of this life. I love it. I enjoy it. I love playing the game. It's a beautiful one. And yeah, I will forever be a student. Of course, I'm a great teacher, but I love being a student more than anything. So yeah, those are the places where you can find me.
Well, thank you. And I think the best teachers are eternal students. So thank you for continuing your craft, continuing to stay open and curious.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So I just want to thank all of our listeners, everyone who tuned in today to this episode of The Man Within, Masculine Stories Women Listening. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. If you enjoyed this conversation, we'd love your support. Please take a moment to rate and review the show on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And if our energy resonates with you and you're feeling called to connect or work with us, you'll find all the details in the show notes below. Thank you again for being part of this journey with us.